Cause Before Symptom with your host, James Carner.
Hey, you guys, tonight we're going to be talking about Zachariah Sitchen. Is he a friend or a fraud? Well, we'll figure that out. Stick around. Welcome to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Hey, I have done something that I'm really proud of today. There's no more shaking of the show. I have the laptop suspended in the air, and it's a crude job, but it looks really great. I'm excited about it. So, welcome to the show. It's great to have you guys here. I am looking at the live, and it doesn't even look like I'm on. Can you tell me if I am live and on? I can't even tell over there. But anyway, it's great to be here, guys. And I am going to log out of Rumble and go back into Rumble and see what in the heck is going on. Yeah, I see me. So, all right. Hey, Lexi, how's it going? Are you guys doing okay? Are you happy? So all I have to do is kind of fix my lighting a little bit, and I'm good to go. So tonight we're going to be talking about Zachariah Sitchen. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this guy, but Zachariah is really well known in the archaeology area of ancient Sumerians, Sanskrit writing, and he posited some theories on what I would call the alien agenda. And there have been a lot of critics against him, and I thought it would be great to figure it out, go through it, and basically give you my interpretation of Zachariah Sitchen and if this guy is legit. Does he have what it takes? And now, as I'm looking at it, I'm not really happy with the lighting, so I'm gonna try to get it like this here, because all of a sudden it's just showing my bags under my eyes. I just hate that. Well, nothing I can do. That's just how it's gonna be. So, instead of seeing like that where you can't see my bags, now it's just going to be like that, and that's it. So, unfortunately, this is who I am. This is my natural face. If you guys are not interested in my natural face, well, there's really nothing I can do about it. It's not like we're sleeping together. Anyway, let's get into a commercial, shall we?
When the Roaring 20s, while everyone was talking about prohibition, Standard Oil quietly changed modern medicine from plants to synthetics made from crude oil. It sounded harmless because it was just a byproduct of oil, but pharmaceuticals just blew up because oil was cheap and everywhere. Unfortunately, the Depression and the Spanish flu outbreak diverted attention from studying crude oil, synthetics, and the human body, basically to determine if it was safe for consumption. Big Oil was able to suppress such research and build an empire where 95% of all medicine we take now is derived from crude oil. Now, studies have shown that crude oil is not only in medicine, but in our shampoo, deodorants, dishwashing detergents, and water bottles, creating what would appear to be modern diseases that cross the stomach-brain barrier. Diseases that never existed before, like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and autism, where scientists have actually found links to synthetic oil, not including geoengineering, where organizations are actually using heavy metals to control the weather that is in our soil and food. I wanted to find a way to reverse those effects of industrialism and turn back time to where oil wasn't a part of our bodies anymore. My team created Elite Potion, a supplemental product that binds to heavy metals and kills parasites that our bodies used to break down and dispose of. Whimsy Worm Wash works to kill microscopic parasites that escape into our bloodstream. Our Nickel Nixer Elixir formula binds to nano heavy metal particulates and the parasite debris, flushing them out of the body like it used to. Unfortunately, with the fourth industrial revolution coming, humans have to adapt to silicon, oil, and heavy metals in order to merge with machines. And I wanted a product for myself to stop the effects of this so basically I can live longer and feel better. I've been using it for months now, and I feel like I'm in my 20s again.
I do feel like I'm in my 20s again. I'm telling you guys, this crap works. Shout out to Lexi, Claire, Frank, Kimmy. What is up, guys? Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. So, yeah, I think the studio is looking just fine. I am really happy with how it's turned out, and the lighting is not too bad, and there's no more shaking in the studio, right? You know, it'll shake this. It's not shaking the laptop, and I am really happy about that. You have no idea. I mean, I am ecstatic about it. And you should see this little stand I made that I drilled up against the wall with these little L things that bring it. Anyway, it actually makes me feel like I got a lot more room in here. And Oliver actually helped me out doing the construction. He loves to watch me work on things. Now, here's the thing. I suck at carpentry. I mean, I don't like measuring and cutting, and he was cracking up at all my mistakes. And I make a mistake, and he's just like, and I'm like, what? And he thinks it's hilarious. So kudos to Oliver for having an interest in watching me build things. I think since the weather has calmed down a bit, I am going to get back up into the attic and start to finish what I started at the midsummer, which is the attic. I installed a drop-down ladder, an attic ladder, and I'm going to climb up it, and I have to lay down all the flooring. Now, up in the attic above the garage, there are no dividers between the 2x4s, so I have to cut, measure, and drill, and I bought a brushless, cordless nailer. It's like it's pretty freaking cool, and it does go through 2x4s, and it should do the job pretty well. So I'm not excited to get back up there because there is just so much glass, right? What do they make that stuff up there? It's not asbestos, but thank God. But up there, it's a fiberglass, right? So I got to get up there, and I have to, in between the fiberglass and all of the cables that they laid up there, I got to put these 2x4s, and it's not easy. And you have to do it on your knees, and believe me, if you make one mistake and you drop, you can go right through the sheetrock and fall into the garage, and boy, that's not that fun. So these are the things I'm doing. My life is not that interesting, I guess. I mean, it's chaotic, but these are the things that I do at home, and that's also besides gold mining. I love to gold mine, and in fact, I think I told you guys earlier that I am getting ready to make a claim on a river somewhere in Oregon. Can't tell you where it is, and it's going to be my own. And I'm going to be doing videos and pictures of me doing gold mining all throughout the rest of however long this show goes. But tonight we're going to be talking about Zachariah Sitchen. And Zachariah, for a long time, I thought his work was very interesting. If you've read any of his books, you would find out that he believed through his own work that the Anunnaki came down and created mankind by mixing their DNA, the extraterrestrial DNA, with chimpanzees or apes, and created, Homo erectus, which is man on Earth. And they were here to mine for gold. And unfortunately, the 3,600-year cycle of Nibiru just so happened to come around, and that was going to destroy the earth. And apparently the god, not God, but, God on earth, a demigod, Enki, decided to stay back and build an ark before the Great Flood. So it looks like we're close to the next 3,600 years. We're only like 100 to 200 years off. And then the great cataclysm again. And I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but we'll get into all of the research. But Zachariah, if you read the Bible and you read Enoch and you follow Zachariah and what his work is, he's basically just copying off of what the Egyptians were saying, and it's just a bastardized version of God, which I would consider Christianity. So let's get into it. Again, thanks to Bufob. What's going on, my friend? And let's see, who else? And yeah, Graveyard, thank you, guys. Kimmy, thank you. Claire, Lexi, I'm just going to go read them all again. Frank. All right, guys, love you all. Thank you for being here tonight. All right, so here we go. Let's get into Zachariah Sitchen. Is he a friend or is he a fraud? Well, I've seen many videos and books claiming Zachariah Sitchen was a fraud. I have also seen positive information stating he was onto something. Sitchen was a journalist, not a studied scholar, seemed to be self-taught in Sumerian and Sanskrit writings. That's pretty cool. Nothing wrong with that. His interpretations have led to heated debates among both scholars and as skeptics. He believed that we were created by extraterrestrial beings from another planetary system in our galaxy for mining of gold. His hypothesis was that they used their DNA with a mix of chimpanzee DNA to form a dumbed-down human hybrid worker that helped the aliens mine our natural resources. His studies have led to many books and movies, including the famous film Stargate with Kurt Russell. You guys remember that movie? When it came out, it was a big movie. I liked it. Is it true? I don't know. I don't think so. I just don't believe in extraterrestrials, but I do believe in interdimensional beings. I do believe in that. And I think as science keeps getting closer to finding the truth, it's going to be even more obvious to me that this is a demon-angel war versus a extraterrestrial war. But they're going to have academia and the news behind them, and everyone's going to believe the wrong side. And I don't know if I've told you guys this, but if the majority of people are following whatever's going on, just automatically assume that that is disinformation, because the majority of people will follow the lie. Now, according to Zachariah's book, and he's wrote many, the Anunnaki and the Igigi secretly had love affairs with Earth women. I come over to fix your plumbing. Yeah, I mean, I would. If I was an extraterrestrial being. You know, Earth girls are hot. But I digress. They had love affairs with Earth women, which created demigods like who left their names eternalized in the legends of many peoples. Some of the most famous were Gilgamesh, Hercules, Perseus, and Samson, forever known as the Nephilim or Nephilim. The half-watchers, according to Zechariah, they're the Anunnaki. The half-watchers, or sons of God, merged with women and had giants. Gilgamesh, Hercules, Perseus, whatever. All of them were demigods or half-breeds of the sons of God and the daughters of men, which I would hate to be one of those women who spits out one of those big old kids. Can you imagine how painful that would be? This merging with humans caused the Anunnaki great harm, which led to men and the demigods, like Hercules, Perseus, Gilgamesh, Samson, those types, to together create vast cities and rebel against their creators, the Anunnaki. According to Zachariah Sitchen, every 3,600 years, the Anunnaki's planet called Nibiru passes into our solar system, causing a great pole shift due to its immense density and gravitational pull, causing earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis. You know, a great flood, maybe. Now, the Anunnaki's final decision was to abandon the humans and return to their ships, basically going back to space until the natural disaster subsided. Well, against his advisors, family, and governments, King Enki, according to Zachariah, decided to just stay back and save the earth from this cataclysm. You know, save the hot chicks. He commissioned Utnapishtim, a good-natured man, to create a giant ship, an ark, called the Preserver of Life, in preparation for a great flood that would wipe away all life on Earth. Wow, sounds so familiar. Where did I read this? Could this Utnapishtim be Noah? Well, Sitchen most likely took information from the Bible, the Book of Enoch, and from his interpretations from Sanskrit to form his own opinions. But the question is, was he wrong or partially correct? Well, let's learn more about him. According to Wikipedia, Zachariah Sitchen, born July 11th, 1920, died October 9th, 2010, was an author of a number of books proposing an explanation for human origins involving ancient astronauts. Sitchen attributed the creation of the ancient Sumerian culture to the Anunnaki, which he stated was a race of extraterrestrials from a planet beyond Neptune called Nibiru. Now, I've never seen Nibiru beyond Neptune, but apparently it kind of goes out of our solar system and then it comes back into our solar system, and it basically gets close to Neptune, apparently. He, Zachariah, asserted that Sumerian mythology suggests that this hypothetical planet of Nibiru is an elongated, 3,600-year-long elliptical orbit around the sun. Now, if you do some digging, you may find that the flood actually did happen 3,600 or 3,500 years ago. Kid you not. So maybe he was onto something. Maybe not. Sitchen's books have sold millions of copies worldwide and have been translated into more than 25 languages. So the guy wasn't a dummy. He had a huge following. Sitchen's ideas have been resoundingly rejected by scientists, academia, historians, including the Sumerologists, Orientalists, and the Assyriologists, and anthropologists who dismiss his work as pseudoscience and pseudo-history, which is weird. It's weird. Why is it weird? Because if this guy was working for the devil, most would be embracing what he was trying to say. And it seems like the elite are not interested in releasing this kind of information right now. So that makes me look at Zachariah Sitchen as maybe not a fraud, but someone who sees something, and perhaps he wanted to find the truth via matter, right? Third dimension matter, and explain it that way versus spiritual, which maybe he had a hard time with. Maybe he was, he wasn't a Christian or anything like that, and he just wanted to explain what in the hell's going on, why we're here on this earth naked without any hair really on our bodies, and we come out without hair on our bodies when we're born in the Arctics. And we just don't seem like we're a natural fit for this earth, right? I mean, that's what I think, but anyway. So his work has been criticized for flawed methodology, ignoring archaeological and historical evidence, and mistranslations of ancient texts, as well as for incorrect astronomical and scientific claims. Well, if you don't go with mainstream science, they're going to eat your lunch and pop the bag. That's an old phrase that I heard from my grandpa, whom, when we would go to school, when I was younger, we had box lunches. Like it was a metal box, like Scooby-Doo or Batman, okay? And before we came out with metal boxes, some kids had paper bags as their lunch, and the bully would come in and take your lunch, eat it, blow up the bag, pop it in front of you, drop off the debris, and that's funny. Well, that's pretty much what academia does to anything that goes against the narrative of the elite. They will chew you up and spit you out. Sitchen was born to a Jewish family in Baku, the capital of then Soviet Azerbaijan, and raised in Mandatory Palestine, which is interesting, which in 1948 became the modern state of Israel. According to an interview in the New York Times, he received a degree in economics from the University of London and was an editor and journalist in Israel before moving to New York in 1952. So, let's go back. He was born in 1920. So he was around 30 when he moved to New York. While working as an executive for a shipping company, he taught himself Sumerian cuneiform. I don't know what that is. And visited several archaeological sites. So obviously he had a fascination with it, right? What's up, Millwright? Similar to earlier authors such as Immanuel Vygotsky and Eric von Daniken, Sitchen advocated hypothesis in which extraterrestrial events supposedly played a significant role in ancient human history. Maybe. We just don't know. But he was fascinated with it. According to Sitchen's interpretation of Mesopotamian iconography and symbolism outlined in his 1976 book, The 12th Planet, which was very popular, and its sequels, there is an undiscovered planet beyond Neptune, again, Nibiru, that follows a long, southern, tilted, elliptical orbit. He also indicated that part of its orbit is due to the north of Earth's equator, whatever that means, reaching the inner solar system roughly every 3,600 years, which I don't know if you guys have done research in the ufology, but they all talk about a coming cataclysmic event of the poles shifting, and apparently the government is getting ready for this. Is this true? I don't know. But I can tell you this. If that is the case, then that's the lie they're gonna say for the returning of Jesus. That's just my opinion, of course. Now, this planet, Nibiru, although Jupiter was the planet associated with the god Marduk in Babylonian cosmology, according to Sitchen, Nibiru, whose name was replaced with Marduk in original legends by the Babylonian ruler of the same name in an attempt to co-opt the creation for himself, collided catastrophically with Tiamat, a goddess in the Babylonian creation myth of Enuma Elish, which he considers to be another planet once located between Mars and Jupiter. This could be the asteroid belt that we talk about. Scientists think that it used to be a planet and something smashed it. So maybe that was the Tiamat planet. I don't know. This collision supposedly formed planet Earth, the asteroid belt, and the comets. Okay. What about the moon? Sitchen states that when struck by one of planet Nibiru's moons, Tiamat split in two, and then on a second pass, Nibiru itself struck the broken fragments, and one half of Tiamat became the asteroid belt. The second half, struck again by one of Nibiru's moons, was pushed into a new orbit and became today's planet Earth. Likely. Could have happened. I don't know. That is, if we don't live in a bubble surrounded by water, like the Bible says. That's what it says. It says, hey, man, I'm going to put water, and then I'm going to make a firmament, and I'm going to put land in it, and water surrounding it, and there you have it. And we're surrounded by water everywhere. Not only inside our bubble, but outside as well. But again, science really is doing a good job getting us to not believe in that theory, because when you look through a telescope and you see these planets like Saturn and Jupiter, man, they sure do look like they are planets out there, not far away from us. Now, Sitchen also speculated that Pluto, which he identifies as both Gaga, like Lady Gaga, Radio Gaga, and Isamud, was originally a satellite of Saturn, but Nibiru's gravity perturbed it, sending it to the outer solar system and giving the body its peculiar orbital path, intersecting the orbit of Neptune. Okay. Sure. According to Sitchen, Nibiru called the 12th planet because Sitchen claimed the Sumerian gods, given conception of the solar system, counted all 8 planets, plus Pluto, the sun, and the moon, was the home of a technologically advanced human-like extraterrestrial race called the Anunnaki. Whatever. In Sumerian myths, who Sitchen states are called the Nephilim in Genesis. Okay. I would agree with that. The Anunnaki, they're not the Nephilim. The Nephilim are the Anunnaki's kids. The Anunnaki, again, I have to look at this from a scholar point of view from the Bible. Bible thumpers. And give an interpretation based on my faith and my belief system, which I choose still to this day Christianity as my faith, because I'm waiting for someone to ask me, why Christianity? Why not Buddhism? Well, because it's the only religion out there where you're saved by grace. You don't have to do anything. Jesus loves you. Everything's okay. He's going to fix it all later. That's it. Now, side note, today I was listening to the Christian radio broadcast in my city, and I love listening to, get any meat I can off of the bone. And it's interesting that this guy he had a microphone. He was going out in public talking to people walking across the street and saying, "Can I ask you a question about God? Can I ask you a question about God?" And he got a hold of this dude from the Philippines or something like that. And he was asking him questions about his city, etc. And by the time he started to try to convert him, he got into the point where he said that God is an angry God because of our sin. And I'm like, I just wanted to slam on the brakes and start yelling. Because, wow, what a great way to bring people to Christianity and tell them we've got an angry God up there, and he's angry because of our sin, so you better choose his son. So I know that you guys understand where I come from in my faith. But I just don't believe in this angry God, I just don't. But I digress. Sorry for that. He wrote, so the planets, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so he wrote, Zachariah, that they evolved after Nibiru entered the inner solar system, and they first arrived on Earth probably about 450,000 years ago. Okay, 450,000 years ago. Got it. Huh? Wow. I just don't believe the Earth is that old. That's just me. I don't know if you guys know, but Mount St. Helens, right after it blew, not even 10 years later, they started finding fossilized things that that carbon dated 500,000 years old. But it literally just happened 10 years ago. So I don't buy that we're that old. The Bible kind of gives us clues or hints that the Earth is 6,000 years old. And for 4,000 years, it took man to speak Jesus into existence so that we could be saved. Anyway. 450,000. Looking for minerals, which was the Anunnaki, especially gold, which they found and mined in Africa. Well, that's interesting because Africa, they got lots of gold. And 450,000 years ago, they didn't mine it all back then. Well, I guess they mined just the surface of it. I don't know. Sitchen states that these gods, the sons of God, were the rank and file workers of the colonial expedition to Earth from planet Nibiru. According to Sitchen, Enki, the Sumerian god of water and human culture, why not be the god of the trees as well? No, you're just going to be the god of water and human culture. Well, how come I can't be the god of soil? Stop it, Enki. You're just the god of water and socialism. Oh, okay. All right. God of human culture. Enki suggested, that to relieve the Anunnaki, he had mutinied over their dissatisfaction with their working conditions. That primitive workers, us made from the Anunnaki and apes, or Homo sapiens, created by genetic engineering as slaves to replace them in the gold mines by crossing extraterrestrial genes with those of Homo erectus. How do they come up with these names? I think they're laughing at us. They're like, yeah, let's make it Homo erectus. Anyway, according to Sitchen, ancient inscriptions report that the human civilization in Sumer, Mesopotamia, was set up under the guidance of these gods, and human kingship was inaugurated to provide intermediaries between mankind and the Anunnaki, creating the divine right of kings doctrine. Now, Sitchen believed, because he's dead, that fallout from nuclear weapons used during a war between factions of the extraterrestrials is the evil wind described in the lament for Ur that destroyed Ur around 2000 BCE, which is around the time of the flood. Around there. Sitchen states the exact year is 2024 BCE. Sitchen says that his research coincides with many biblical texts, and that biblical texts come originally from Sumerian writings. Well, and that's one of the arguments that a lot of people have with Christianity, is that the Sumerian texts are quite older than the Old Testament. But there are writings that have been found that predate the Sumerian. So it depends on who can research and get through the propaganda and then find the truth. Amanda asks, what do you think about Neanderthals and primitive men? Well, I don't think that we evolved from apes. That doesn't make any sense. If we did, we'd see them evolving right now. That seems a logical thing. And we would also see animals, birds, fish evolving in between going from water to land. That's what I would believe would make sense. If we evolve, then we're constantly evolving, and it doesn't all just happen over an extended period of time. It happens all the time, right? Like within a few hundred years, we should be evolving with bigger lungs because there's less oxygen in the air than there used to be 1,000 years ago. Things like that. But our lungs have not grown. So, no, I don't believe in evolution. And I do believe that there is a war on Christianity to disprove Christianity to prove evolution. What about primitive men? Well, I don't think that there's a link between Bigfoot and man. I think if Bigfoot is a Homo erectus, it's got to be something close to a Nephilim or pre-Nephilim versus the Nephilim that are coming now. But many Bigfoot researchers state that they are interdimensional beings and they can vibrate in and out of our world. And so that makes me think that these Bigfoots that are seen are not the Nephilim, but some form of a demonic manifestation that we don't understand yet. But that's just a guess, an opinion. Okay, just an opinion. Okay, so New York Times reporter Corey Klingenon has noted that despite academic dismissal of his work, Sitchen has a devoted following of readers. But he does have critics. Michael S. Heiser hates that dude. I'm not joking. If you've seen videos of Heiser, he really is angry at Sitchen. And he says he's arguably the most important proponent of the ancient astronaut hypothesis over the last several decades. But he hates him. I'll prove it to you below. But he also says Sitchen was a frequent guest on Coast to Coast radio show, which also Michael Heiser was a guest of. And I don't know, maybe he changed his tune or something, but I know he's a critic of Sitchen's work, but he says arguably he's the most important proponent of the ancient astronaut hypothesis over the last several decades, which is funny. And so Sitchen was on Coast to Coast for a lot of times, which in 2010 presented Sitchen with a Lifetime Achievement Award for Gods of the New Millennium. Author Alan F. Alford actually admits he initially became infatuated with Sitchen's hypothesis, but later became a critic of Sitchen's interpretations of myth. So we do evolve when it comes to our belief system. I believe it. 10 years from now, you're not going to believe what you believe now because you're going to run into information that makes more logical sense and steer you in that direction. So I believe that when Sitchen was first writing and coming out, it was marvelous. It's like the book The Gods of Eden. It gave you a new perspective on how to think about things, but eventually his followers turned into critics. According to some writers, Sitchen's ideas, along with those of Eric von Daniken, may have influenced the beliefs of the religious sect of Raelism. Now, we did a show on Raelism. Go back and check it out. And writer Mark Pilkington sees the mythology of Japan's Pana Wave, P-A-N-A, religious group as rooted in Sitchen's The 12th Planet and its sequels. So Sitchen got himself a following that turned into a cult in Japan. In 1994, the movie Stargate Directed by Roland Emmerich, and the 2009 video game The Conduit drew some conceptual inspiration from Sitchin's ideas, while screenwriter Roberto Orci says the villains of the film, Cowboys and Aliens, were inspired by Sitchin's conceptualization of the Anunnaki as gold mining aliens. So now you know where that came from. In 2000, Lauren Morgan Richards' theatrical performance of Enki, based on the writings of Zachariah Sitchen, premiered in Cleveland, Ohio, under the choreography of Michael Metcalf. So he is getting notoriety, still to this day. In 2016, Kazem Finjan, the Iraqi Minister of Transport, claimed at a press conference that Sumerians had built and used an airport in the Dekar Governorate. I don't know, that's their language, to launch spaceships 5,000 years ago. He cited the work of Sitchen and others to support his assertion. Criticism of Sitchin's work falls primarily into three categories: translations, interpretations of ancient texts, and astronomical and scientific observations, and literalism of myth. Literalism of myth. Okay. Now, the translations and interpretations are as follows. When Sitchen wrote his books, only specialists could read the Sumerian language. Okay, this is a critique of him. However, sources such as the 2000 book Sumerian Lexicon have made the language more accessible to non-experts. But Sitchen was writing before 2006. So where did he get all of his knowledge about ancient Anunnaki, Sumerian languages, etc.? That's where they have a problem with him. And then American biblical scholar Michael S. Heiser, who hates him, states he has found many inaccuracies in Sitchin's translation and challenges interested parties to use this book to check their validity. Professor Ronald H. Fritz, author of the book Invented Knowledge, False History, Fake Science, and Pseudo-Religions, mentions the example of Sitchin's claim that the Sumerians' sign Digger, D-I-G-I-R, means pure ones of the blazing rockets. Wow. Adding that Sitchin's assignment of meanings to ancient words is tendentious and frequently strained. Tendentious. Wow. Fritz also commented on Sitchin's methodology, writing that when critics have checked Sitchin's references, they have found that he frequently quotes out of context or truncates his quotes in a way that distorts evidence in order to prove his contentions. While evidence is presented selectively and contradictory evidence is ignored. Well, Sitchin bases his arguments on his personal interpretations of Egyptian and Sumerian texts and the seal VA-243, which is right here. Do you see this? He bases his entire philosophy on this piece of hieroglyphics, or a picture, and we're going to talk about it. So this is called Seal VA-243. Sitchin wrote that these ancient civilizations knew of a 12th planet, when in fact they only knew of 5. Now, if you look on this, you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then the one in the middle, 12. Or the one over here, 12. There are 12 planets in this, right? One way out here in the middle is Nibiru. Does that make sense? I hope you're seeing what I see. You can't follow my mouse, but over to the left, top left, you'll see the planets around the sun, and then there's one planet right in the middle of this VA-243 seal. So Sitchen wrote that these ancient civilizations knew of a 12th planet, when in fact they only knew 5. Hundreds of Sumerian astronomical seals and calendars have been decoded and recorded, and the total count of planets on each seal has been 5. Seal VA-243, what we're looking at right now, has 12 dots that Sitchen identifies as planets. When translated, Seal VA-243 reads, "You're his servant," unquote, which is now taught or thought to be a message from a nobleman to a servant. According to Heiser, the so-called sun on Seal VA-243 is not the Sumerian symbol for the sun, but is a star, and the dots are also stars. The symbol on Seal VA-243 has no resemblance to the hundreds of documented Sumerian sun symbols. So they're basically saying, hey, there's more plaques like this one, and they don't show that. But Sitchen says, but this shows 12 planets, therefore I'm sticking with it. Now, if I had a bias in what he was believing and, believing in the extraterrestrial realm, then I probably would be right along with him. Sure. No problemo. I'm with you. But, there are hundreds of other plates that they found that basically don't show any more than 5 stars or 5 planets surrounding a star. So, yeah, I understand where they're coming from. Okay? So in 1979, a review of the 12th planet, Roger W. Westcott, professor of anthropology and linguistics at Drew University, Madison, New Jersey, noted Sitchen's amateurishness with respect to the primacy of the Sumerian language. So this scholar with degrees, and I probably told you guys this before, but you can have 32 degrees and still be frozen. He noted Sitchen's amateurness with respect to the primacy of the Sumerian language. Sitchen's linguistics seems at least as amateurish as his anthropology, biology, and astronomy. Well, on page 370 of his book, for example, he maintains that all the ancient languages, including early Chinese, stemmed from one primeval source, Sumerian. Well, how do you explain the Tower of Babel? Was it Sumerian at one time, and then God broke up everyone into different traditions, different languages, and different countries? Remember, the Tower of Babel, they all formed a one-world government. And it seems they want to do it again, right? That's what we're hearing. That's what we're witnessing. We continue to hear this thing called a New World Order ever since George Bush let the cat out of the bag. And it's a big idea. It's a New World Order. Where the law of the land, not the jungle. 1,000 points of light. God, I never liked that guy. So, they said it all came from one primeval source, Sumerian. That's what Sitchen says. So Sumerian, of course, is the virtual archetype of what linguistic taxonomists call a language isolate, meaning a language that does not fall into any of the well-known language families or exhibit clear cognation with any known language. Like, for example, Hebrew to Russian, or Russian to some other language. You can tell that they've evolved from each language, right? But nothing seems to evolve from the Sumerian language, meaning we don't take any of their symbols, we don't take any of their words, none of it actually makes any sense. It just seems like the Sumerians just came and were gone, just vanished, which I believe is probably the groups that were running the world right before the flood. And after the flood, we lost all those languages. So naturally, we wouldn't have anything to fall onto. And most likely, well, we don't know, but what type of language did Noah speak? Well, it wasn't Sumerian. So that I understand where scholars are coming from. Yes, I do. Okay. Even if Sitchen is referring to written rather than to spoken language, it is unlikely that his contention can be persuasively defended, since Sumerian ideograms were predicted by the Azilian and Tartarian signaries of Europe, as well as by a variety of script-like notational systems between the Nile and Indus rivers. So none of that language, writings, and symbols followed after it was just gone. We found it, and we see nothing relating to it. Astronomical and scientific observations of Sitchen's work, Sitchen's planetary collision hypothesis does superficially resemble one suggested by modern astronomers, the giant impact hypothesis of the moon's formation about 4.5 billion years ago by a body impacting with the newly formed Earth. However, Sitchen's proposed series of rogue planetary collisions differ in both details and timing. As with Immanuel Velikovsky's earlier works called Worlds in Collision thesis, Sitchen states that he has found evidence of ancient human knowledge of rogue celestial motions in a variety of mythological accounts. So what he's saying is he's seen it in mythological stories, and he could see the effects of the Sumerians in there by looking at a Sumerian story that he read and seeing that they shared the same story later down through mythological accounts. In Velikovsky's case, these interplanetary collisions were supposed to have taken place within the span of human existence, whereas for Sitchen, these occurred during the early stages of planetary formation, but entered the mythological account passed down via the alien race and which purportedly evolved on Nibiru after these encounters. Interesting. Millwright says that's where Star Trek's idea of the Federation came from. I think so. Absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me if they were the writers, Gene something of Star Trek was fascinated with Sitchen's work and the Anunnaki and going out exploring. But difference is the Anunnaki, how they treated us is exactly how we would treat others if we went out into space. We would be the Anunnaki. If mankind got in spaceships, which I just don't see them doing, they would go and exploit and create workers from another alien race and do the exact same thing the Anunnaki did according to Sitchen. No joke. But anyway, according to former Immanuel Velikovsky, assistant turned prolific critic, so he was his assistant, then he just literally started hating on him, C. Leroy Ellenberger, Sitchen states that from an equal start, the Nephilim evolved on Nibiru 45 million years ahead of comparable developments on Earth, with its decidedly more favorable environment. Such an outcome is unlikely, to say the least, since Nibiru would spend over 99% of its time beyond Pluto. Well, really? Okay. Sitchen's explanation that heat from radioactive decay and a thick atmosphere keep Nibiru warm is absurd and does not address the problem of darkness in deep space. I would agree, 100%. If Nibiru was in this really deep, long cycle of being outward, just like, this AV thing suggests, like this little Nibiru way out here outside, that far away from the sun. I'm telling you guys, they're going to be ice cold. ice cold. So, also unexplained is how the Nephilim, who evolved long after Nibiru arrived, knew what happened when Nibiru first entered the solar system. The scenario outlined by Sitchen with Nibiru returning to the inner solar system regularly every 3,600 years implies an orbit with a semi-major axis of 235 astronomical units, whatever that means, extending from the asteroid belt to 12 times farther beyond the sun than Pluto. Well, if Nibiru is going to come in now within the next 100 to 200 years, which is what the Vatican apparently is looking at, waiting on, that's what it seems. Because the Vatican telescope in New Mexico called Lucifer, that's the acronym for their laser undeniable cipher, whatever. They made some long, stupid name for it called their telescope Lucifer. And they've been following a planet for a long time. And they say, no, we're just looking at other things. No, they're seeing something coming into our atmosphere. And the government has talked about it. Whistleblowers have talked about it. They call it Planet X, Nibiru. I forgot the other name for it. But this isn't anything new. And it's kind of interesting how this is kind of like fallen by the wayside because nobody's talking about Sitchen. Nobody's talking about Planet X. And yet X.com and everything's now X. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, this orbit, extending from the asteroid belt, and by the way, if Nibiru came through into our atmosphere, wouldn't that go through the asteroid belt? Because it's not just a belt like a ring, like on Saturn. It's a belt of it's a round barrier that you can't get in and out of without hitting a meteor. Because when the planets explode, they explode like that, right? Of course, I don't know how they decided just to stop because space is a vacuum. And anyway, don't get me started on that. So under the most favorable circumstances of avoiding close encounters with other planets, right? If Nibiru was coming in, no body with such an eccentric orbit would keep the same period for 2 consecutive passages. I would agree. Once it comes in and it did all that damage, okay? It did a ton of damage, and then it's back out. Now it's coming back in again. It's probably going to be in another pathway, right? It's not going to go straight towards, Earth and Matthias, which whatever that planet was called, and those asteroids. It's going to go in another direction. So I would agree with that too. Within 12 orbits, the object would be either ejected or converted to a short-period object. Thus, the failed search for a trans-Plutonian planet by T.C. Van Flandern of the U.S. Naval Observatory, which Sitchen uses to bolster his thesis, well, there's no support for it at all. Sitchen, in the case of Adam's alien genes, states that 223 genes, which is an occult number, found by the Human Genome Sequencing Consortium are without the required predecessors on the genome evolutionary tree. Later researchers have argued that the conclusion from the Human Genome Sequencing Consortium cannot be drawn due to the lack of a comprehensive gene database for comparison. An analysis by Salzburg identified 40 potential genes laterally transferred into the genome from prokaryotic organisms. Salzburg also argues that gene loss combined with sample size effects and evolutionary rate variation provides an alternative, more biologically plausible explanation. I don't understand any of that shit. Literalism of myth, according to Peter James, co-author of the controversial book Centuries of Darkness, has criticized Sitchen both for ignoring the world outside Mesopotamia, and more specifically for wholly misunderstanding Sumerian, Assyrian, and Babylonian literature. Ouch. Sorry, Sitchen. He uses the Epic of Creation by Enuma Elish as the foundation for his cosmogony. Cosmogony. Identifying the young god Marduk, who overthrows the older regimes of gods and creates the earth. As the unknown 12th planet, in order to do this, he interprets the Assyrian Babylonian theogony as a factual account of the birth of the other 11 planets. The Babylonian names for the planets are established beyond a shadow of a doubt. Ishtar was the deity of Venus, Nergal was Mars, and Marduk Jupiter, and confirmed by hundreds of astronomical, astrological tables and treaties on clay tablets and papyri from the Hellenistic period. So they're saying, hey man, Sitchin's stuff is crap. We've got stuff dating way back saying that there's no 12 planets. Sitchin merrily ignores all of this and assigns unwarranted planetary identities to the gods mentioned in the theogony. For example, Apsu, I believe that's Apsu, attested as God as the primeval waters became all of things, the sun. Ea, as it suits Sitchin, is sometimes planet Neptune and sometimes a spaceman. Okay, so he's saying, hey, Neptune is a spaceman. And the identity of Ishtar as the planet Venus, a central feature of the Mesopotamian religion, is nowhere mentioned in the book. Instead, Sitchin arbitrarily assigns to Venus another deity from Enuma Elish and reserves Ishtar for a role as a female astronaut. Okay, interesting. Now, William Irwin Thompson comments on what he calls Sitchin's literalism. What Sitchin sees is what he needs for his hypothesis. So, figure 15 on page 40 of his book is a radiation therapy, and figure 71 on page 136 is a god inside a rocket-shaped chamber. And Sitchin is trying to show the commonalities of these images. If these are gods, why are they stuck on our cheap B-movie technology of rockets, microphones, spacesuits, and radiation therapy? I would agree. If they are gods, then why can't they have some really divine technology such as intra-dimensional wormhole travel, anti-gravity, starlight propulsion, or black hole bounce rematerializations? Sitchin has constructed what appears to be a convincing argument, but when he gets close to single images of ancient tablets, he falls back into literalism of, here's an image of the gods and rockets. What can I say? Well, that's true. You know, rockets is old technology, guys. We're still playing around with it because they're waiting to release the free energy through the Antichrist. So they're just waiting. And so they're going to continue playing around with rockets until the Antichrist shows up and you know, gives us this crap. And then gives us this whole spiel on extraterrestrial beings being our gods and the Anunnaki, etc. So, lost my place. Hold on. Okay, so suddenly ancient Sumer is made to look like the movie set for Destination Moon. Well, Eric von Daniken's Potboiler, Chariots of the Gods. Have you guys read that book? It'll get you thinking. I own it, and it's a good book. I don't agree with a lot of it, but man, it'll really have you fascinated with Sitchin. He has the same problem. The Nazca Plains in Peru is turned into World War II landing strip. The gods can cross galactic distances, but by the time they get to Peru, their spaceships are imagined as World War II prop jobs that need an enormous landing strip for anti-gravity. So this literalization of the imagination doesn't make any sense. I agree. But every time it doesn't, you hear Sitchin say, there can be no doubt, but... there can be no doubt, but... Anyway, we got more to cover after this commercial.
If you're looking for a publication that delivers honest takes and critical insights into the issues of our day, then look no further than The Flame Paper. The Flame Paper is written for the people, by the people, who aren't afraid to challenge a mainstream narrative, be it healthcare, voter fraud, political correctness, or even the one-world government. The Flame is full of timely articles, reports, and expert advice written by freedom-loving, truth-telling experts, journalists, and concerned citizens. To subscribe, go to theflameusa.com.
Go to The Flame. It's just $6 a month. You get a newspaper once a month, and they got good stuff in it. I write for The Flame. I'm a writer. I'm a contributor. I haven't written in a couple months, but I got kind of busy with doing Elite Potion. So, there you have it. All right, so skeptics, what they say about Sitchen. So, Zachariah Sitchen, author known for his controversial theories, best known for his books, The Earth Chronicles, where he proposed that extraterrestrial beings, which he called the Anunnaki, visited Earth in ancient times and influenced human civilization. While Sitchen claimed to be a scholar of Sumerian culture and language, his interpretations and translations of ancient texts have been widely criticized by experts in the fields of archaeology, history, and linguistics. Many scholars consider his work to be pseudoscience, arguing that he misinterpreted Sumerian mythology and language to support his theories. In summary, while Sitchen had a background in journalism and was not a trained Sumerian scholar, his contributions are often viewed as more of a fringe theory rather than credible scholarship. I would say he is not only a fraud, this is one of his critics, I would say he's not only a fraud, but is currently engaged in a continuous crime spree against just about anything and anyone. Anytime he recalls an incident of wrongdoing by himself or Israel in general, victims of Israel, he instantly says, victims of God, and uses me as a mind control patsy to apparently do something that has been done by Israel or others he is defending. I don't use the word God to call anyone I know or myself. I don't use Bible names to call people by in real life. I am 100% convinced that religion is mental illness. There is no correct interpretation of the Bible and no right way to do church. The continuity of crime, that is a 24-hour-a-day nightmare today, is the doing of Zachariah Sitchen, and the emotional, psychological condition of the human population is degraded and injured by it. He is engaged in a continuum of the behavior, so the cessation of it will come when someone can possibly understand a Jewish person to be guilty of something and do something about it. Oh my God. Yes, Zachariah Sitchen was a complete fraud, according to another critic. And nothing he has written is a correct understanding of the Sumerian text. For a conclusive refutation of a Sumerian translation, see Christian O'Brien versus Zachariah Sitchen, comparing historical records, and Sitchen is wrong. And I show you the links below. Another critic says, when Sitchen wrote his books, only specialists could read the Sumerian language. However, sources such as the 2000 book Sumerian Lexicon has been made more accessible to non-experts, but it was way later in Zachariah's work. So where did he get the lexicon back then? Because it wasn't around. Another critic says, American biblical scholar Michael Heiser states that he has found many inaccuracies in Sitchen's translations and challenges interested parties to use his book to check their validity. Professor Ronald H. Fritz, author of the book Invented Knowledge, False History, False Science, and Pseudoscience Religion, mentions the example of Sitchen's claim that the Sumerian language, Din-Gur, means pure ones of the blazing rockets. I think I read all that one before. Sitchen, another critic, based his arguments on his personal interpretations of pre-Nubian and Sumerian texts, and the seal VA243, which is shown here, obviously. Let me just pull that up again. This, all right? Which is shown here. Yeah, Sitchen wrote that these ancient civilizations knew of a 12th one, right? I think we talked about that one too. In 79 review of the 12th planet, Roger W. Westcott, hold on, let me get rid of this. Westcott, professor of anthropology and linguistics, he basically said that he was an amateur, which we've said already. And then, unfortunately, there are many such pseudoscientists in the world making bold claims about pre-astronautics, right? The History Channel was talking about ancient astronauts. They say there are conspiracy theories or unsubstantiated claims about certain languages being the mother of all languages. So or the oldest language in the world, which Zachariah thinks it's Sumerian. For some weird reason, it's always the same languages that are often claimed to be alien, super old, the first language of mankind, etc. Sumerian, Etruscan, Tamil, Sanskrit, Greek, Serbian, Albanian. There is usual little to no scientific facts behind such claims. Now, Zachariah did have some fans that go on to say, one of his fans said, Sitchen spent his life researching all of his books. He could read all the ancient languages, from Hebrew to Akkadian. Never even heard of that one. From Aramaic to Sumerian. He went on his own explorations to all sites mentioned by Enki, that which are still available, such as the Great Pyramid and the Baalbek, B-A-A-L, Baalbek, and to every museum in the world, and read every tablet, artifact, and every cuneiform, or cuneiform, I don't know, C-U-N-E-I-F-O-R-M, writing he could get his hands on, and wrote other scholars or spoke with them on the phone or in person. He fact-checked everything and offered up his evidence for the reader's dissemination. On his website, he says, one of the few scholars able to read and interpret ancient Sumerian and Akkadian clay tablets, Zachariah Sitchen, based his best-selling 12th Planet book on texts from the ancient civilizations of the Near East. Drawing both widespread interest and criticism, his controversial theories on the Anunnaki origins of humanity have been translated into more than 20 languages and featured on radio and television programs around the world. He sold hundreds of thousands, if not almost 1 million books. Scholars, he was not, right? He was not a scholar. He knew about economics. Great. He was an amateur turned expert without the help of academia. So is he a bad guy? I don't think so. Sitchen found translation books and did it himself. But academia is literally going after him. If the government was really involved in his work to use him as a conditioning teacher, they would have propped him up with more credentials, don't you think? Instead, he has more critics than he has admirers. Now, is there a Nibiru? And by the way, I keep hitting this thing. I got to work on that. That is my light. And it keeps hitting my feet. You know, it's like right when I figure something out, then something else just goes, Ari, I'll figure it out. All right, so is there really a Nibiru? Is there really a Planet X? Followers and readers of Zachariah Sitchen will know that the information about Nibiru comes from the Sumerians and the writings and artifacts they and other ancient people left behind. Okay? The core premise he has made in his writings is that there is a 10th planet, again, including Pluto, in our solar system with an elliptical orbit of about 3,600 of our years. People from Nibiru come to Earth and discovered the gold they needed to help repair their atmosphere, and they began mining it. What's interesting is, I told you guys about the firmament being made out of gold. You see, he's onto something. And the Anunnaki needed gold to fix their atmosphere. I'm just saying, you know me, I'm just putting the clues together. The yellow submarine we all live in. Much of the knowledge of these ancient people, which they knew because the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth come, told them, has come true, including the color and size of Neptune and Uranus, or Uranus, and the very existence of the outer planets long before our telescopes could find them. Meaning, the Sumerians in their information on their tablets, they were talking about at least 5 planets. So they knew something, right? Scientists even suspect another large object in the Kuiper Belt, which might be Nibiru. So let's assume that the other writings also have merit. According to Zachariah Sitchen, and discussed at length in his book, The End of Days, Nibiru is not due to come near Earth for at least several hundred more years from now, which I've said. Which is a good thing, I guess. Although it is possible that celestial events have impacted Nibiru's orbit and shortened its annual cycle from 3,600 years to something less. We don't need to worry about its presence near Earth for some time. But when it comes to calamity, will it cause calamity? When it comes? During its existence, it has orbited the sun and come into the vicinity of Earth thousands of times. A few of those caused calamities on Earth. Zachariah believed that the biblical deluge was caused by the gravitational pull of Nibiru, causing the Antarctic ice cap to slip into the ocean and create a worldwide tsunami that inundated the Earth. Okay. In prehistory, Nibiru, or its moons, may have collided with Earth, exchanging genetic material that allowed life on both planets to evolve with compatible DNA. Most of the time, when Nibiru came into the vicinity of the solar system near the sun and other known planets, there were no incidences of concern. Readers of Zachariah Sitchen's work will be inclined to believe there is a Nibiru and that the ancient Sumerians were writing from the knowledge of the Anunnaki about the planet, its orbit, its inhabitants, especially those who come to Earth, and of the origins of life on our planet, Earth. They will say, as Zachariah did, that there is no doubt that there is a Nibiru. While we agree that there is no need for panic, we otherwise respectfully disagree with Morrison on this subject, who was a critic of his. Now, again, scientists have proved that there is a body out there that does... They have proved that there is a body out there, but they can't find it. They're saying that all of the planets and their calculations all say the same thing, that there's another body out there. You can go look that up. Now, regarding the January 19th, 2016 publication of an article in the Astronomical Journal about evidence for another large planet in our solar system in the Kuiper Belt beyond Pluto, Zachariah wrote on January 20th, with an elliptical orbit of 10,000 to 20,000 of our years, this planet may not be Nibiru, which has an orbit of about 3,600 of our years. So he stuck to his thing. When we said we literally said in an astronomical journal, there is evidence of another large planet in our solar system near the Kuiper Belt, beyond Pluto. Zachariah said, hey, that's not Nibiru. So that's interesting, which has an orbit of 3,600 of our years. However, this prediction of a likely additional planet in our solar system is exciting news, right, to scientists, not to me. Perhaps the search will lead us to either finding Nibiru, or perhaps we'll find that something has changed the impacted Nibiru's orbit since the last time it orbited Earth. I have my doubts, but since I'm not an astronomer, I'll keep an open mind. I don't think this is Nibiru. Now, Hollywood and mainstream news have been hinting at Planet X or Nibiru for quite some time. Movies like 2012 with John Cusack shows what happens when there is a pole shift or another body comes into the solar system that is just too big for us to handle. The government has been studying a body in space just as the Vatican has. The Vatican reports that they are using Lucifer, acronym for their telescope, at the Physics and Planetary Sciences Observatory. The scientists there study a range of related sciences such as quantum gravity, meteorites and moon rocks, and possible life on other planets orbiting other stars. That's what the Vatican says they study. However, Tom Horn, in his book Petrus Romanus, he interviewed scientists at the Mount Graham Observatory, where they have the Lucifer telescope, who told Thomas and his buddy that they were watching a planet that is behind the sun. The CIA's declassified book called The Adam and Eve Story by Chan Thomas, you can see it in my links. It talks about a calamity just like the flood and what Zachariah was talking about. But it happens every 6,500 years and not every 3,600 years. We know of whistleblowers that have talked about a pole shift coming, And this is why the bunkers are being built. Maybe. I don't know. But no doubt that our history shows civilization gets wiped out every now and then. We see it in folklore. We see it in religion. We see it everywhere. We have actually found spark plugs and other machinery gadgets in 2-million-year-old coal mines just sitting there. Now, they don't have the modern names of the spark plug like we do, but they knew it was a spark plug, and you could go look that up. I do believe Zachariah put together everything he believed to be accurate based on his bias and belief system. This means he may not be a fraud altogether, but someone who put forth a theory of his own and garnered some attention for it. For example, he may just not be Christian and is trying to find out what the truth is, and he may not trust the government like I don't, and as academia kept attacking him, he stood his ground. That I applaud him for. I don't believe everything he says, because everything that he has said, it's written in our Bible and the first book of Enoch. It's very interesting. So I don't think he was a fraud, because he stuck to it until the day he died. But academia doesn't like him because he says aliens, right? They don't want that word out there. And religion, they don't like him because he says Enki was God. Well, they don't like him now. He's a Satanist. Archaeologists don't like him because he wasn't a doctor or had a PhD in languages. And archaeologists don't like him because that's what I just said. He only had a degree in economics, folks, from the University of London. Theologians don't like him because he was trained in reading Sanskrit or Sumerian, or he wasn't trained in it. So is being self-taught such a bad thing? I don't think so. I believe Sitchen believed in his theories and was not forced or bribed to release his work. Many have said he is a paid informant for the government to pitch the idea of aliens, but I don't think this is a valid argument. There isn't anything that I found blatantly ties him and the government together as far as I could tell. He knew the Bible well enough to find out if there was a connection to ancient Egypt and other past dynasties to explain away the Nephilim and fallen angels as physical bodies and not spirit. So he wasn't interested in spirituality, he was interested in facts, and he thinks probably most likely that the government and academia is hiding information. That's why he stuck to his one picture, which is, AU 243 or whatever that it was. So he knew the Bible well enough, and perhaps he's interested in the sons of God seed as I am. The sons of God and their sperm. I'm interested in it. I want to know more about the sons of God sperm and how they impregnated the daughters of men. See, the question is, how can a spirit impregnate a body? And how do we explain the giants and their wisdom, knowledge, and strength? He paints a logical picture, removing the elements of Jehovah or God and replacing it with extraterrestrial entities. That's what I see he did. So I give him credit for that. I don't believe in everything he says, but his work is fascinating. If I were to have spiritual encounters myself, if I were not to, I would tend to lean towards Zachariah and his theories, because I have had supernatural spiritual encounters. So you can't wake me up from that. Most likely because I've been introduced to Christianity at a young age. But his theories really make a more plausible explanation of the origins of man. And in the future, when Christianity finally runs thin, because it will, because Satan's attacking it left from right, his work probably will be more appreciated, and the government may start using him probably the next 10 years. I believe he was partially correct. Since we live in a bubble surrounded by water, there is no such thing as extraterrestrials outside of the bubble we live in. Space and anything beyond a golden firmament. Zachariah believed in space and the universe, which academia believes in too, and they think it's real. Unfortunately, he died before Congress finally admitted to interdimensional beings, not extraterrestrial beings, which Zachariah could or would have had to go back to the drawing board and explain that away, because that probably would be perplexing to him. I mean, it's perplexing to Congress right now, because interdimensional beings versus extraterrestrials, it's not helping Lucifer in his endgame crap. Stick around.
When the Roaring 20s, while everyone was talking about prohibition, Standard Oil quietly changed to modern medicine from plants to synthetics made from crude oil. It sounded harmless because it was just a byproduct of oil, but pharmaceuticals just blew up because oil was cheap and everywhere. Unfortunately, the Depression and the Spanish flu outbreak diverted attention from studying crude oil, synthetics, and the human body, basically to determine if it was safe for consumption. Big Oil was able to suppress such research and build an empire where 95% of all medicine we take now is derived from crude oil. Now, studies have shown that crude oil is not only in medicine, but in our shampoo, deodorants, dishwashing detergents, and water bottles, creating what would appear to be modern diseases that cross the stomach-brain barrier. Diseases that never existed before, like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and autism, where scientists have actually found links to synthetic oil, not including geoengineering, where organizations are actually using heavy metals to control the weather that is in our soil and food. I wanted to find a way to reverse those effects of industrialism and turn back time to where oil wasn't a part of our bodies anymore. My team created Elite Potion, a supplemental product that binds to heavy metals and kills parasites that our bodies used to break down and dispose of. Whimsy Worm Wash works to kill microscopic parasites that escape into our bloodstream. Our Nickel Nixer Elixir formula binds to nano-heavy metal particulates and the parasite debris, flushing them out of the body like it used to. Unfortunately, with the fourth industrial revolution coming, humans have to adapt to silicon, oil, and heavy metals in order to merge with machines. And I wanted a product for myself to stop the effects of this, so basically I can live longer and feel better. I've been using it for months now, and I feel like I'm in my 20s again.
I've been using it for months. I love it. Guys, sign up to ElitePotion.com. That is our sponsor. It's my product, too. This has been Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. God bless you, God thank you, and God keep you. And I appreciate everything that you guys do for me, especially coming on a Wednesday night listening to me babble on and on. Do me one big favor if you can. Love your neighbor. That's it. If you could just love your neighbor by being available, this world would be a better place. God bless you. See you soon.